Morning, everybody, and thanks to joining me on this week's Business Bitesize. I'm really happy to have Gemma with me this morning from HR People Support, and I've asked her to come along because I've come across a bit of an issue with several of my clients. And interestingly, in the current market with shortages of staff, I think what we're finding with some people is that there are, if I'm going to be blunt about it, some problems within the team. And we know what the answer is. We know that it's acknowledged that there needs to be an exit strategy, perhaps for that team member. And I see people, in my view, just delaying the inevitable in dealing with that issue. And this is happening across a few of my clients, which I find interesting. So I thought, what can I do to help with that? Well, actually, why wouldn't I talk to a HR professional and get some of their thoughts and insights on what might be delaying us taking these decisions and moving these issues forward. So thanks for joining me, Gemma. What having done that little intro, what is it that you think holds people back from pushing ahead with these issues?
Good morning, Will. Thank you for having me here today. So from our perspective, I think there's a number of different scenarios where issues might not be addressed, and that might be poor performance or lack of motivation, long length of service, becoming comfortable in the role, and often line managers are reticent to address these issues, and that might be purely because of lack of knowledge or not knowing how to broach difficult conversations. They might have been burnt before, and are nervous about getting it wrong or saying the wrong thing, or they might just lack some HR support, all of which can be overcome.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. What do you think really are the downsides of just not addressing these issues once they've been identified, not dealing with it in a timely fashion?
Yeah, well, nobody likes conflict or confrontation, and we tend to bury the issue and pretend it will go away or hope it will get better.
Certainly true.
But experience tells us that rarely does the situation improve on its own, and people need an impetus to change. So when an issue is ignored, the individual might think everything's fine and carry on as normal. So until it's not fine, and then it becomes a huge shock, and that's when you have grievances being raised, or you might have a discrimination claim or a constructive unfair dismissal claim for those who've got over 2 years service. So the risk is really in cost, both time and money, both to work through the statutory processes that you need to work through, but also there's a reduction in productivity and efficiency while the focus is taken away from the business, as well as a possible kind of effect on business reputation. Settlements can prevent escalating cases like this, but they often require deep pockets if you're unable to defend the claim. So we're talking kind of compensatory awards for unfair dismissal, including constructive, up to kind of 89k, and for discrimination claims there's no upper limit. So these things can escalate quickly and they can be costly, so it's important to get it right.
I think you make a great point, but I think also, my experience, I don't see lots and lots of those things happening. What we see is people delaying taking actions, and then they get some advice, and then they finally take the steps that they need, but it just takes them longer to make that first step. So I think, again, your point is really important. Actually, with the right support, we don't need to end up in those situations.
Yeah,
but we do need to get started.
Yes.
My point. We do need to get started somewhere. So that's it there. How do we move it forward then? So we've identified an issue. We know we need to do something about it. What should I be doing to move it forward?
So you've said that early intervention is key. We need to acknowledge the issue and kind of make plans. We need to get the support and start the conversations. The evidence piece, kind of, if you're starting a conversation around performance that you need to address, you need to kind of start the evidence. To have the conversation, you need to highlight what you've noticed, provide examples of when something has happened, and set those expectations for what you want to see. and provide support for someone to get there. So the early conversations you can have, the better it will be. When you're thinking about an exit strategy, you might be looking at kind of an overall succession plan for the business, for senior roles. Developmentally, everybody should be having those conversations with the line manager in terms of a 5-year plan, to kind of make sure that they're developing on the right track. And it shouldn't be a surprise. And generally, individuals will come to that realization themselves that they've kind of had their time with the business. But you have to have those systems and processes in place to start the conversations across the board, so that it doesn't then become an issue. But really, the key is kind of early intervention, having those honest conversations and knowing individual motivations.
It sounds to me like the first step, if I say to clients, what's the first thing you need to do to make this happen? It sounds like that conversation is very early in the piece. But actually, what would you say? Actually, what's the first thing you would say to people? You need to do this now to start the resolution, start the process.
I would say if you're unsure, then you need to seek advice before you start. So speak to someone like HR people support, speak to a professional, speak to your HR department, and gather the evidence that you have on hand to be able to guide you through the process. The earlier you can plan and prepare and set clear expectations, generally you have a better outcome.
So my finish up, I'll ask you for your final thoughts, but my experience of these things is people have a tendency to overestimate the cost of doing something, i.e. it's going to be hard, it's maybe a settlement or something somewhere along the line, and overestimate the cost of not doing anything, which is actually the disruption and potential problems that are caused by not resolving the issue. So for me, I think it's interesting to hear what you say, and I think probably from both of our experiences, we've seen businesses deal with these kind of issues. They don't always end up in court, and actually usually the resolution is quite a sensible one for both parties, and actually it benefits both parties going forward, which is why I get slightly frustrated when I see people not actually taking action and trying to deal with the issue. So your final thoughts?
Yeah, early intervention. Those conversations are always more beneficial than delaying or burying your head in the sand, because that only builds up the costs and in time and money to deal with the issue. And train and coach your managers so they can have the right conversations with their team at the right time.
Brilliant, Gemma, thank you for coming on. As I said, I know this is a problem out there at the moment. I'm seeing it in various places. I'm sure you are too. So hopefully those thoughts and insights this morning will just help people to start taking the first steps to address these things that need dealing with. Thanks, Gemma.
Thank you, Will. Nice to see you.